let's bring in Dennis McShane, former Labour Minister for Europe and author of a book called Must Labour Always Lose? And that's the... Very good morning to you. Nice to see you. I guess that's the ultimate question. Do you think this time Labour wouldn't lose? This time they could win through?
I think there's been a big change. If you'd asked me that question, Anne, on Friday morning, I'd have said, touch and go, Tories ditch a kind of unpopular, lying Prime Minister, bring in a sparky new young woman. And then by Friday evening, the whole world was falling down with people like Julia Hartley-Brewer, our favourite right-wing commentator, saying, what are they up to with the country suffering from an energy crisis, a heating crisis, a food crisis, a poverty crisis, an NHS crisis? All they can do is give massive tax cuts to the richest people in the country. And if I may just very, very quickly, very important story in, I think, the Sunday Times today, that what Kwasi Kwarteng has also done is freeze tax bans. That sounds techie. What it means is if you're on a medium, lower salary, as inflation goes up, your tax, you don't pay any more because of inflation. He's frozen that, so 4 or 5 million people are now going to pay increased tax at the bottom of the heap, while all the rich Tory guys at the top of the heap get £50,000 bonuses. I mean, frankly, I couldn't have devised a better policy for Labour to start the conference.
But they are, I mean, they're coming forward, and necessarily so, with their own plans of how to stimulate growth, which is key to all of this, making the UK a green superpower by 2030. Now, if they get in 2024, that gives them 6 years. I mean, that's a task beyond comprehension, actually. We need to see the nitty-gritty, don't we?
I think we're in a national emergency. We're in a national emergency with the poverty, the cost of living, and the fact that we've taken no steps for 10 years to deal with the energy crisis and the need to insulate our homes, to reduce energy consumption, no longer to be at the dependence of Vladimir Putin and the other Vladimir Putins of the world. So, yes, it is, if you like, a 6-year war footing emergency plan. I hope it can work. I agree there'll be lots of difficulties, but better to be ambitious, to make Britain no longer at the mercy. And we've been at the mercy in the 1970s, we've been at the mercy in the past and today at people like Putin, at the kings of Saudi Arabia and the Arab oil states. And if we can imagine a country where every home was insulated, where I'm staying at my daughter's home in Sheffield on my way to Liverpool. It's a nice, lovely house, but it doesn't have double glazing like every house in Germany does.
Yeah, I was going to ask you why you aren't already at the conference, but you're going later. You, in your time, have witnessed so many different and different sorts of Labour leaders. How do you think Keir Starmer is shaping up?
He's absolutely fascinating. I mean, he's not flamboyant. He's not one of the great orators. He's not a Jeremy Corbyn with a socialist vision of everything. He's not a Neil Kinnock, who's always had 100 or maybe 200 words to march us up to the top of the hill, and then we all had to march down again. He's probably more like a Clement Attlee. I'm nervous. I mean, I think you have to be my age to even to know who Clement Attlee was. That's a rather dull, prosaic, but honest Prime Minister we had after 1945 and alongside Churchill during the war. He'll take decisions in the best interest, I think, of the country. He doesn't have anything to prove. He's not a lefty at all. So I don't know whether he'll turn the country on at an election, but I think, I mean, thanks to Liz and Kwasi, I mean, we've now got almost sort of Tory Jeremy Corbyn's running the show. I mean, this sort of Trotskyist Toryism of really slightly batty stuff. If only the rich were much, 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 much richer, then all would be well. There's no modern economy that can be based on that, is there?
But we need to see, though, this is all about growth. I mean, there are lots of benefits that have been paid to the rest of society. You look at the freezing of the new energy cap at £2,500. You know, everyone is getting a tax cut. I mean, a much more modest one, of course, but they are getting the tax cuts there. So there is stuff for the rest of the country as well, but this is aimed at growth. It's about getting the economy growing again. Now, that is crucial. If that proves to work, I mean, it's going to take a few months to find out, but that could be the key to getting out of this hole, couldn't it?
Stephen, I absolutely agree with you. And I really did think, and I did say, and I do a lot of stuff around Europe and talk about British politics to European media, and said, don't diss Liz. I mean, I hated all those attacks on her from the left. They're very unpleasant. I know her. She's ambitious. She's pushy. She's dynamic. She's not stupid. Far from it. You know what she did after she finished the usual political degree at Oxford, philosophy, politics, and economics? She went off and qualified as a chartered accountant. I mean, I can hardly count to 10. I can't imagine what it's like to pass a chartered accountant's exam. So she's a tough woman, and she knows what she wants. She's taking a massive punt. And frankly, I don't care. You know, I've got grandchildren coming along now. I want them to grow up in a good country. But I have to look at every single newspaper headline, every single newspaper story, and everybody, at best they say it's a high wire gamble. We'll see. But that does open space for Labour that says, no, let's return to the old British values of brick by brick, building and serving all of the country, not just the mega rich.
You live anywhere else?
Me personally? No. I live in normally live in London. My daughter's up here. I just came up here. Sort of funny way to get to Liverpool, I know, but I'll be there in an hour or two.
Would you live in any other country?
Probably not. I did live and work in Switzerland and lived in France for 15 years, which I liked very much. But no, you know, come on, I'm British. This country made me. Its language made me. It's a country I love. It's a country on my mother's side from Ireland. No, not really. I don't mind. I'm relaxed living in other countries. For heaven's sake. When I was out on the Peak District yesterday at the Norfolk Arms, I can recommend it. Just a couple of hours. I'm not drinking a lot. A lovely pub meal last night. No better meal in Europe.
That's because, you know, the news recently has been so grim, and a lot of people talk our country down.
I don't think you can talk a country down and talk a country up. Political leaders can do a country down and do a country up. There's no doubt in the 1970s, when the Labour Party allowed trade unions, military trade unions, to have far too much of a say. I remember Dennis Healey telling me he had to take 5 phone calls a day from trade union bosses. That was outrageous. No Chancellor Exchequer should be taking phone calls from any lobby group, business or trade unions. And that was a bad, you know, that was an unhappy decade, I'd say. Now we want our country to do well, but you can't look. I mean, Stephen, you mentioned the tax help on electricity. Every other European country did that 2 months ago. We've had 2 months of fear. I told everybody as soon as the Tory party conference was over, whoever won, probably Liz Truss, she would copy Europe. It's happened. I'm glad. But why do we have to wait 2 months and all the fear and worry and concerns that there are? So it is simply this lack of dynamism in Britain that we've seen in the last 10 years with gimmicks, endless gimmicks. And do you remember David Cameron as Prime Minister? He took us into regime change intervention in Libya and Syria, and we've still got hundreds of thousands, millions of refugees fleeing from those 2 countries thanks to that grotesque blunder. I won't get into Theresa May, and if you don't mind, he's a friend. I'd rather not mention Boris Johnson. I mean, I wish Liz well, but I must say...
Let me ask you, because the key to it, I mean, your book's called Why Must Labour Always Lose? Well, Labour didn't lose under Tony Blair. You served under Tony Blair. He won election after election after election. And yet, of course, remains extremely unpopular amongst the... I mean, maybe not as many of the Labour politicians now, but certainly amongst the sort of rank and file, if you like. So Labour's most successful Prime Minister isn't liked.
When I was a kid, well, I mean, a young Labour activist, a young Labour candidate in the 1970s, the man that everybody on the left hated was Harold Wilson. He won 4 elections, actually, one more than Tony Blair, but the absolute definition of the Labour activist is it's a man or a woman or a trans who will never forgive a Labour leader for winning an election. So over to Keir Starmer to see if he can change that. Now, my book argues simply the fact that since 1966, Labour has only won in 4 years, 74, 97, 2001, 2005. That's an unbelievably bad record. So I invite people in reading that book to ask why. I've got my own answers in it, but it's for everybody in Labour to decide why. I think Keir Starmer certainly has taken Labour to a much, much better position than it was in the previous 10 years. Whether that's convertible, because there's so many social changes, and to win a majority government, you've got the problem of Scotland. You don't want to discuss all that this morning. But undoubtedly, Labour is in a much stronger position now than it has been in the last 12 years.
Yes.
Do you know what, Dennis? It's really lovely to talk to you. Yeah. It's been many years since when you were doing the rounds, as it were, so it's lovely to talk to you once again.
Will you come in one day? Come into the studio? And
I love GBNews. It's my favourite channel. I mean, you guys, you're the first one to honour me with a morning show, but Akko and lovely Alistair Stewart, an old friend, he wheels me in at the weekends. I mean, oh gosh, I'm going to upset everybody. They're going to crucify me when I get over to Liverpool. I mean, I know you're all meant to be dreadful right-wingers, the Daily Mail on TV steroids. I say, no, they're woolly old liberals. They're nice people. They go out paddle boarding in the Lake District like any
absolutely. Yeah.
Exactly right.
No. Well, you have an invitation, a standing invitation now to come in and see me and Stephen at weekends. That'd be lovely. But enjoy this conference.
Yes.
Going to be fireworks, I think.